Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Prime Life Podcast. I am excited to be here today for the conversation. Joseph, how are you?
Doing amazing, Laura. Thanks for asking.
Oh, fantastic.
Great weather out. Having a good day.
I know. So, Joseph, where you're at, did you have the same delightful weather on Sunday that we did?
On Sunday or Saturday?
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it might have rained on Saturday, but I think we're unfortunately used to that at this point.
Yeah.
And Mary, how are you doing today?
I'm very zen today. I think I shared with my colleagues, I was fortunate to have a little bit of day spa treatment on Saturday. A nice gift from my daughter and her in-laws. I don't know, are they trying to tell me something? But anyway, so that's helped a little bit. So thanks, Laura.
Oh, that's great. I love myself a good spa. Mary was living her prime life, if you will. So why don't we kick off today's episode? Mary, if you would do the honors, please.
Thank you, Laura. I'm delighted. So today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Joan Sotkin. She's been helping people resolve money issues for over 30 years. She's the founder of the popular website prosperityplace.com, and she's the host of the Prosperity Show podcast and author of the award-winning book, Build Your Money Muscles, 9 Simple Exercises for Improving Your Relationship with Money. So I love that because it sounds like fitness to me, which I love. So Joan, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you do what you do.
Okay, so it's a long story. Let's start with today. I'm 82 years old, about to be 83, and I decided a long time ago that I didn't want to get old. I know I have to age, but I didn't want to get old. So I started watching how old people walk and how they think. Surprised when you get to your 80s, you don't remember where you put things. And that's just part of it. And I wasn't always this healthy. I was very unhealthy. And as a matter of fact, when I was 30, a doctor said to me, Joan, you're just a hypochondriac. You're going to have to live with all your disorders. And fortunately, I have a fairly strong screw you attitude. And I said, that's not my story. And so this was in 1971, 70, and I started meditating around the same time. And so I studied alternatives and tried anything that came along because I was a very uncomfortable person physically. And then in 1956, I wound up giving up everything I owned away because grown-ups didn't make a lot of sense to me. I was born in 1940. All they expected was for me to get married and have children. I tried the marriage thing twice. That was not my idea of a good time. And it just wasn't meant for me. And so I've been looking for Joan Sotkin. Who are you? And I happen to be the only Joan Sotkin in the whole world. And that's quite a thing to bear, because then I have to behave that way. So I've been looking for Joan Sotkin for a long time, and I think I have finally found her. And my shtick has turned out to be this money thing, and I love talking about money, but I've come to realize that whatever emotions you're having about your money is never about money. Whatever you're worried about is never about money. So what is it about? My interest is helping people find peace of mind in the midst of the chaos. And as the chaos gets deeper and deeper, it's going to be harder and harder to find that place of peace. And I don't have a lot of money at this point because I keep letting my money go down as I go inside. And my goal was to never let my money determine how I feel. And I feel great when I have lots, but I wanted to be able to feel great when I didn't have lots. Because I see people who have lots who behave as if they're never going to have enough. That always amazes me. I only have $1 million. Maybe if I have another million, I'll be okay. Well, honey, it's not about the money. It's about your habitual feelings that you learned in childhood. And if you can get in touch with those, then you can change the habit and be happy.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, but I want to just dive in. So talk to us about the habitual feelings from childhood. Because you said some people are going to have a lot of money and feel not so great. They're not going to have a lot of money. Where do the feelings from childhood come into play here, and how does one identify those to help solve or resolve for those?
The best question. That's all about the work I do, is helping people learn their habits. You know, when I talk about emotions, I can't separate that from our thoughts and beliefs and everything about us, what we eat, how we exercise, our health. People seem to think there's one thing. If I figure out this one thing, I'll be okay. You're okay today. Whatever you are today is fine. There's nothing wrong with you that needs fixing. You just have these habits. So where do the habits come from? First of all, there's a lot of different ways. When your mother is pregnant with you learn her emotions, because all those neurotransmitters that are going through her brain and body are going through yours. So they become part of who you are. Your ethnic background makes a difference. I'm Jewish, and for years I didn't know why I kept people at a distance. And in the last couple of years, I've come to realize that being Jewish comes with the fear, if you get to know me, you're going to want to kill me. I mean, that's our history. And so once, the feelings go so deep. Just recently, people are afraid of running out of money, because if you run out of money, you're going to die. If I have no resources, I think I'm going to die. And so this need to bring in all that money and play all these money games is so you don't die. And that doesn't keep you from dying. Surprise. Got to find a different way.
Laura, I feel the same way you do, like where to go. So you talked about money muscles. We've had other guests on the show talking about like physical muscles, mental muscle. Talk a little bit about the money muscle. We've had people talk about money and a little bit of what you're describing here as internal stuff. But talk about the money muscle for a minute. What does that mean to you?
Well, that's interesting. How do you lift money? How much money can you lift? But, the reason I chose the name Build Your Money Muscles, the book was written in 2005. And I had to pick a name that started with an A or B, because Amazon used to list things alphabetically. So I needed the word build and money. So that's where the name came from. That's not the focus of what I do. And it was just a good title. Didn't mean much. So I don't know how to answer your question.
So, Joan,
Yes.
you've said a lot of interesting things thus far, which I find intriguing. So, when someone comes to you, how do you unpack all of their fears and their worrying about money? And like you said, they think maybe if they don't have money, they're going to die, and that's not necessarily true. Like, how do you unpack all of that with them? Because, I mean, I think many of us, I don't want to say all, many of us walk around, especially, being in the retirement space, thinking, oh, have I saved enough? Or,
Right.
maybe
Am I going
I,
to run out of life?
yes. Yeah. And being you mentioned your age, which I love. So tell us a little bit about that, but also how you being 82, almost 83, how that's also changed perhaps your perspective.
Well, as you grow older, at 30, you see life very differently from the way you see it at 60 or 70, or, a lot of people when they reach 60, this happens to a lot of men. Oh my God, my life is going to be over. I'll never be have sex again. And I mean, it's amazing when
Joan,
people.
is that why they drive those red Corvettes?
My brother has one of those.
Hey, I'm gonna have to defend all of the men out there.
Yeah, yeah, I'll show you how strong I really am. And they think if they have more money. I mean, men are very much more money oriented than the women are. Women like cuddling up and feeling like they belong somewhere. And I never had any kids, and I'm not married, so I've had to figure out who I am living in this crazy world myself. And I have had this connective tissue disorder that's genetic, and so it has lots of side effects. So it would have been really hard for me to get a job, particularly getting out of college, because you had to wear high heels, and I have terrible feet. So it's like there's no way I could have done that. And so that was obviously not my goal or my mission. It was to get a job. And in my family, job was like a dirty word. My father was an entrepreneur. Both of my grandparents were entrepreneurs. So it was like job. It's like, and my father said, be a teacher. Well, I tried that for a year and had nightmares that I had to do that again. So life has told me, not that. Go your way, Joan. And that's not easy when it's like when I gave everything I owned away. It's not like everybody said, oh, Joan, that's wonderful. No. Well, how does she make her decisions, that sort of thing. And I did things like getting a pilot's license, and because that proved to me that I could be healthy. I did the fire walk before anybody knew who Tony Robbins was. So I've been a little offbeat all my life, and I don't live a normal life. And yet, there's something about all of us that is the same. Just because we all have a liver doesn't mean that each of us is like other people. But there's enough energetically about each of us that if we look beyond the differences, then we can begin to feel connected. And that's what I think people are actually looking for. How can I get the love that I crave? How can I get the connection that I crave? And that's what interests me. So you asked how I help my clients figure this out. First of all, I have a self-assessment, and I happen to be extremely intuitive. I've been meditating since 1972. So it's like I spend a lot of time inside. And because of the health stuff, it's really caused me to go inside a lot. And I go through these periods where I go on retreat. And so as a result, it's like I was thinking this morning, when I was learning to fly, and do you remember the harmonic convergence? There was this thing that went on in somewhere along the line where it was a big spiritual thing. And I had a crystal business. I was the first one to market crystals and minerals for healing and meditation nationwide. That's where I made all my money back then. And when you learn to fly, you get a different perspective of your life when you're up at 10,000 feet. And just recently, one of my clients has an airplane, and he took me up for a flight. And you just see things differently. You can see a bigger picture. And I started studying metaphysics when I was in my 20s. So I've always seen it differently. And I love the idea that we're all connected, that we are one, and that when you can feel that, that's when you can find that peace of mind.
So is it worth risking the question to ask, is money what is used to begin these conversations? Like, does it start with money and then money just kind of blows right out the door?
when I'm talking to clients.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
But the first thing I say, it's never about money.
right.
You know, they come to me for different reasons. One, I work a lot with men because I come from a very male-dominated family where the rule was Sotkins don't feel. And I wanted to know why I was crying all the time. So I taught myself to feel. And men will say, I need to know more about feelings because I know I'm holding stuff in. And I believe most physical dis-ease is from unexpressed emotions because all that energy gets stuck in your body and has to go someplace. And so they tell me why they're here. I do find I have enough money. Why do I always feel like I'm not making enough?
Mm-hmm.
And I help them see very quickly, it's never about money. It's about whatever emotions you're bringing to your money. Now, especially with men, I never say, and what are you feeling? You know, I'll say things like, when you say that, I feel sad. Are you feeling sad? People have to learn how to label their feelings, how to understand that there's a physical component to every emotion. So if you have a headache or a stomach ache, it's probably an emotion that's causing that pain. And when you can ask yourself, what am I feeling? The process that I use is that people say to me, oh, I can't understand why, and they're feeling something. So I'll say, close your eyes and tell me what you're experiencing in your body. Are you feeling a contraction someplace? And they'll say, yes, in my chest. Okay, close your eye, keep your eyes closed, then remember that feeling. When have you felt it before? And that's when you know what the habit is, okay? Because it goes back and back and back. And people think they have to stop feeling or ignore the feeling. Just push it away, take a drink, smoke a cigarette, eat some sugar. I haven't eaten sugar since 1973. That's my claim to fame. you know? And then I'll say, what would you rather be feeling? And a lot of people don't know how to answer that. Like, they'll say, well, I want to stop worrying about money. I said, it's never about the money. It's about the feelings you're bringing to your money. So I had a client, this will be a good example, a client whose financial advisor sent her to talk to me. She was driving him nuts. She had just retired as a teacher, and she had a financial advisor, so she had enough for that. And she was driving him nuts. She would call him up every 2 days to find out what was going with the market. And he said, talk to her, Joan. And she told me how she was afraid of not having enough and a few other things. And I said, well, what was your abandonment story? And she told me about her mother abandoned her, so to speak, emotionally. So she felt all alone. And so it wasn't about the money. It was about feeling unseen, unheard, abandoned, deprived, angry. In my book, Build Your Money Muscles, I talk about the 5 main feelings that people act out through their money. So when you can recognize what you're actually feeling and you get the money out of the way, then you can learn about yourself. And that's the secret. The more you know about yourself, the more connected you feel.
So let's keep building on that for a second. You talked about this fear of running out of money, fear of, so running out of money, you die. What practical advice, recommendations do you have to overcome some of that financial fear?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
Okay, which is a topic I often cover. Okay, so if it's not about money, what is it about? Do you have any financial fears? If you say no, I'm not going to believe it.
No, I've got plenty. And I've got years until I have to, retire or not have
right.
to
But
retire.
what is the thing that goes through your mind most often about money?
Not having enough, which is probably...
Not having enough. Okay. Do you have enough to eat?
Yep.
Do you have a place to live?
Yep.
You got a job?
In a sense, yes.
Okay. Or you work for yourself, whatever it is.
Yeah. I have a source of income, yes.
You have a source of income. You've got enough. Do you know what enough feels like?
Well, how you define enough, I guess, is...
Oh, it's that sense of, what do you do, sports or anything?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Cycling.
What's your sport?
Cycling.
Okay. What is the highest goal you've reached?
Oh, 1 day ride. I don't know, 50 plus miles in a day.
Okay. And do you feel like enough after that? Like you did enough?
No.
Okay, then you don't know how to feel enough. My dog doesn't know how to feel enough because she's...
Are you calling me a dog?
Well, it's dopamine. It's how your brain works. And my dog could eat for the rest of her life and would never say she had enough. And that's how people are, because your brain, it was designed to keep us alive. So it wants you to have more food and more sex. And look how the world gets screwed up because of that, right? So you have to learn, you have to teach your brain, not yourself, but your brain. You have to build up new neural pathways. So when you finish that run, or whatever, even if it's only a 5-mile run, and you say to yourself, you take a deep breath and you say to yourself, wow, that was terrific. It was enough for today. Your brain believes whatever you tell it. I'll say to people, do you know how to feel satisfied? And they'll say, I never feel satisfied. Well, what a way to go through life. It's like hungry. It's like my dog is never satisfied. And that's how people are like their dog. And so it's a matter of being able to learn how to become less dopamigenic and more in the tune with serotonin, which is satisfied, content. I'm type A, there was no doubt about it. But I've learned that whatever's happening is fine. There's nothing that can happen to me that's not fine. I've come close to death a number of times, and it's fine. I learned a lot from that. Just 3 years ago, I had sepsis. You know what sepsis is?
Yeah.
You can die from sepsis. And somehow I got to the hospital, and I see all of these people running around, and it was clear they didn't want me to die. And I didn't know at the time how many people die from sepsis, 250,000 a year in the United States. And I've learned a lot about medicine because I have to protect myself against the medical system a lot. Because this thing I have, I didn't find out what it was till 65. So I learned a lot. And I'm laying there in the emergency room, and they're going nuts around me. And I had no choice but to surrender. And to surrender completely. The peace that passeth understanding. I had been trying to reach that for so many years. So am I pissed off that I had sepsis? No, it was the only way I could have Someone could have said, Joan, just sit still and be present. And I learned what that was. And in the last 3 years, my life has been changing little bits at a time as I've learned to accept everyone and everyone who shows up in my life and every incident that shows up.
That piece of advice can be applied to pretty much any situation, right? Enough
Yes.
food, enough, yeah.
Yes. My first spiritual teacher, Swami Parampathy, said to me, Joan, worrying is a waste of time, and anything negative is a waste of time. And our brains are designed to see what's wrong, to protect ourselves. Well, we're thinking beings. Some of us are smarter than others, but it doesn't matter. There's, all these people who go to church and trust in God, but they don't really, it's like they beg. Praying is often begging. Oh God, please give me more money. That's ridiculous. It's a matter of trusting that you have that universal power within you. And that by letting go and learning to love yourself and coming from a place of love, that's what makes life work, not having more money.
So, Joan, I agree with pretty much all of what you said. And I'm just going to comment on the meditation. I've been meditating since 20, not as long as you, since 2017. And, everything you were saying about, accepting and being present. So that's all, I think, part of learning through meditation. I know it's helped me. So I loved what you were saying about that. I recently read a book that our Chief Growth Officer, Tom Buckingham, shared with me by Thomas Blackwell called The Liberty of Our Language Revealed. We bring about what we talk about. And it's a story and it's a little bit out there, but when I saw the title, I'm like, this is perfect for me. And I do believe, because you kind of touched upon that, like, the things that we maybe believe that about ourselves or the things that we say. So I know, we're kind of getting closer to the time where we're kind of finishing up. How do you advise your clients to be a little bit more positive in what they say to themselves or what they think, and the language they use every day? And I'm just going to say this before I'll let you answer the question is I've actually, since I read that book, I've become more attuned. Even when I say to someone, hey, how you doing? Or how was your weekend? And many people that I run into are not necessarily positive, and I didn't realize it as much. And so it sounds like there's a path forward with, again, your positive mental attitude as part of a habit that you take up every day. So how do you advise your clients to perhaps focus on that a little bit more so that they won't keep talking about they never have enough money, and to give them some peace of mind?
Well, first of all, if they never have enough money, they feel less than. So they're still bemoaning how mommy and daddy treated them, which is understandable because that's how we learn what we learn. I can only tell you what I did, and then I help my clients find a way that works for them. When I realized that I had a lot of negative self-talk, I mean, I was picking because they picked on me all the time, and our family told a lot of jokes, but I was always the straight person, and it was like being brought up in a house with Don Rickles. Was not comfortable, and I had to learn how to get beyond that. But so I would hear myself saying, "Oh, you should have done that instead," or "You really sounded stupid." And so I would stop and take a breath and say, "Thank you for sharing, but we don't talk that way anymore." And I would follow that with a positive statement. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. At some point, because I've been a little out there for a long time, I created this benevolent mother. I called her the mother. And whatever I said, she would say, you're doing fine. I would argue with her. You always say I'm doing fine, but you have to create a secondary voice. And be who you want to be. And if you don't like the way you're treating yourself, then treat yourself differently. But understand that the way you're treating yourself badly, you learned from when you were home. The fact that my father called me Jonathan for the first 10 years of my life, do you think that helped? When I confronted him with it, he said, I only called you Jonathan when I liked you. I mean, parents didn't come with a manual on how to bring up kids. And my parents didn't wake up every day and say, we'll really screw her up. No, they were very responsible parents who took me to the best doctors, who are usually the worst, to the best doctors and fed me the best food that they thought was best, a lot of cake and candy. And so you have to learn how you need to take care of yourself. And when I was on a podcast one day, people said, what would you like to leave us with? And I said, love yourself, let go, and connect. If you can learn those things, it also love yourself, let go, and connect. Because the thing we really require is being touched and loved. And when I was brought up, parents were told not to coddle the kids and touch them a lot. And my parents weren't touchy anyhow, and the primitive babies in the papoose thing with the back, they were touched more than we are today. So touch yourself. Treat yourself the way you want to be treated. And realize that there's nothing wrong with you that needs fixing. You're fine just the way you are. You just have to stop trying to be like someone else.
Before Laura gets to your question, I just have to chime in. If you were the straight person in your family, I want to get some of those home videos of your family get together.
My brother, Mark, turned out to be the executive producer of Golden Girls, who wrote a number of the scripts. So he got to boss around B. Arthur. So I was easy. The other brother became a very successful owner of his own business with employees and traveling all over the world. And so I was just the girl. And I had to learn how to say, screw you to all of them. But we love each other. My brother now lives in Santa Fe where I live, and we get along very well. I just don't expect them to understand who I am.
Well, Joan, we thank you for sharing a lot of insight on a number of different levels today. And along the same path, we've heard about how you help others, but want to ask you more of a reflective question is, what is your why? Why do you wake up every day and do the work that you do?
Because I felt the urge I feel like I have to. What else am I going to do? Sit home and fetch about what's going on? It's like I don't plan a whole lot. It's like I sit on the couch and wait for instructions, which sitting on the couch in the morning, I meditate, or I might meditate before I go to bed. I just get a feeling for what I'm supposed to do. I see so many people making their lives happen. I got to make this happen. No, I've learned to allow it to happen. What's showing up? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? Who am I being? And so you say self-reflection. I think you have to do some of that every day. Am I being the person I want to be? And if I'm not, what do I have to do to make it happen the way I'd like it to be? You don't have to follow other people's instructions.
I love that. I tend to not follow people's instructions for better or worse. So that hits home.
But the thing is, with something bad happens, we have to find out what we're not before we find. It takes till you're 50 to find out what you're not. And it takes another 20 years to begin to understand who you are. And if you take care of yourself and you stop punishing yourself on a day-to-day basis, then you'll get to live long enough till you get the 80s and you'll be able to just be who you want to be. You just have to allow it to happen.
Oh, I love that. And for our listeners who want to learn more, potentially work with you and understand more of your service that you offer, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, I suggest that people listen to the podcast, to the Prosperity Show, because I talk about all this stuff there. I have a combination of interviewing people, and I do a solo episode fairly often. And I love to talk to people. I'm a talker. That's my one talent. Let me just make money talking, because I like to talk. And on my website, prosperityplace.com, it'll lead you to everything else. I have to update the site. The most up-to-date information is in the podcast. I do it once a week. It usually airs somewhere between Friday and Sunday. Used to air every third Friday, but I get a little bit behind, which I'm allowed to do because I got the 80s.
I love it so much. If looking ahead, hopefully we're all lucky enough to catch the 80s one day. So Joan, thank you so much for your time. Joseph, Mary, thank you both for being here as always. And we look forward to next week's episode of the Prime Life Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.